Oh. Hey, wake up, Steve.
Oh. Oh. We're still alive.
Thanks.
Oh, plane's trashed. Well, let's split up and find another way off this oversized freezer.
Right.
Okay, let's do it.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Resident Evil Code Veronica X. In the last part, we finished off Disc 1 of the game, taking care of the Tyrant twice in the process. And now we've reached the Antarctic Base. This is, by and large, we're going to be spending most of the second disc. It is a much smaller area than Rockport Island, but there's a surprising amount to do in here, on top of some other things. Before even turning left in this corridor, you want to enter here for this major save point we're going to be using for a lot of the second disc. It's darker in here in the HD release, and for good reason, because you can see basically every item here in the GameCube and Dreamcast releases. The lighting is a lot better, arguably, in the HD remaster. Alexander's memo. My father, Edward, discovered the mother virus in cooperation with Lord Spencer, who was also a nobleman. They studied it for the purpose of military use. Eventually, their study took shape. They named a variation of the mother virus the T-Virus. To camouflage the research, they established Umbrella Chemical Incorporated. I majored in biogenetics and have been involved in a top-secret project supporting my father's research. However, my research went through a difficult phase, and my father died in the middle of the project. We're now at a major disadvantage against other researchers, as there is a great competition in the field of T-Virus research. I've disgraced the honorable name of the Ashford family that our great ancestor Veronica established. If nothing is done, Umbrella will be taken over by Spencer. I must expedite the project to its fullest without being detected by Spencer. After much thought, I've decided to establish a large-scale advanced research facility. It'll be located in the transport terminal that I created by using the abandoned mine in the Antarctic. Within the facility, I'll have a room built. It will be similar to the design of my mansion, the legacy of the late Trevor. I'll be able to cherish my sweet memories there. For security purposes, this confidential project will be given a name. It is the name of the beautiful ancestor of the Ashford family, Veronica, whom I wish to revive so badly. I am confident that the results of my research will be as glorious as her name, and that the honor will be restored to the Ashford family once again. I guess in a way it's comforting that the Ashfords were all kind of crazy like that, but, yeah. Now, you can hear something rattling, of course, in here, but we actively can't really do anything about that, because I think if you try to do anything in the area where that rattling is, it's considered too dark in here, because the power is completely out here in the Antarctic base. And one of our first objectives is to restore power proper. Now, because I already have almost 3,500 handgun bullets again, the main weapon I would recommend using for your trip in here is the handgun, but especially for this next room, you're going to want to take advantage of something I mentioned you could do with it back when we got the custom handgun. Switch it back to manual, which is 1 bullet per button press, as it'll come in handy for this next room at least, as it's pretty easy to waste ammo in here. Why? Well... We got moths! The moths are surprisingly effective enemies as well. They only spawn in several phases in this room. And despite their extraordinarily low health, as you saw, that only took 1, technically 2 bullets to kill that particular moth, they don't do much damage on their own individually. But if they're on you for too long and do damage, they essentially lay eggs in Claire And those eggs will later hatch, doing extra damage and poisoning you. Thankfully, in that exact hallway, there are blue herbs, so the poison is pretty easy to get rid of. But if I recall correctly, the eggs hatch on a bit of a delay, so you could be like rooms away, and it'll just be like, oh god, suddenly I'm poisoned. So if you get hit by one of them and they actively do damage to you, check your status pretty consistently to figure out when the poison actually takes hold, because it can be devastating. In fact, poison is kind of an annoyance in the latter half of the game, as while the individual amount of enemies that can poison you are low, they show up frequently throughout the disc moving forward, if that makes any sense. Additionally, there's also a special poison type that can cause a side quest later on, but we'll talk more about that when we get to that point. Well, that said, welcome to the armory. The mining room key is the main reason you want to come in here, but there are a couple of other reasons you want to grab things in here too. Namely, if you investigate the row of lockers behind this zombie I'm shooting, we can get ourselves another weapon, which I didn't know was here on my first playthrough or two. This is the assault rifle. I think it's almost the exact same weapon that Carlos uses in Resident Evil 3. Very high ammo, pretty decent power, very high rate of fire weapon. Only problem is, like the M100Ps, ammo for it is kind of sparse in that there's exactly one refill in the game from memory. So use it more so for specific fights than anything. Now there's some C4 on that, or some sort of plastique, on that particular locker, and the detonator for it's right here. With that said, we don't have a way to set it off, because the explosive and the detonator themselves are heat sensitive. If you have the lighter still, because you didn't do the side quest for the hemostatic though, you could grab that right now and grab the, I think it's like 3 packs of handgun ammo that are behind it or something like that. But because I have the lockpick, we cannot grab that for now. Although I think theoretically you can use flame rounds on that with the grenade launcher, but that's a waste of ammo. So not exactly in my interests to do that. Not that I would really use flame rounds too much anyway. They're probably the least useful grenade round in this particular game. They're also not very high in number. In fact, grenade rounds themselves are kind of sparse in this game compared to, say, Resident Evil 2. In any kind, really. Acid rounds pretty low. BOW rounds was only the one set, but still. There's a hole shaped like an octagon. There's a notice. Poison gas. In case of emergency, seal off. I'm going to guess that the reason there's a poison gas pipe is because they ended up encountering poison gas deeper in the mines. Because this place was, I believe in lore, just a proper, like, diamond mine or some shit at some point. They just ended up converting it into a proper umbrella base at some other point down the line in the company's history. Bit hard to see, but there's some herbs and ammo right here. You can see these more clearly once we get the lights on. But I know they're here, so I might as well grab them. That is something I appreciate about Resident Evil by and large. If a room is dark, you can still grab items from within it. You just can't read anything or usually do puzzles. So in the case you're on the way getting power out, getting the power on in a game where the power is off, but you know where items are, you can still usually grab them. I think that's been consistent since the first game. Oh, actually, no, I actually completely forgot these Cerberus were here. So there are Cerberus in the second disc. Huh. For some reason, I remember the ones in the courtyard being the last ones you encounter. With that said, this should be the last room we find them in the game. Again, zombies, by and large, are the most consistent enemy you find, as they're just always there. They don't really get any new variants throughout the game, too. Like, none that have special powers, none with extra health or something. None that have special items. It's just, the zombies. I guess the closest thing you have to a super zombie in this particular game is the anatomist back in the prison. With that said, now we have the power on, so now we can not only open certain doors we couldn't before, but we can also now do things in rooms we otherwise couldn't. The big thing this allows us to do is, I believe, open any shutter doors that wouldn't open because of the power outage. And that allows us to open, I believe, it's the BOW storage room. in the main little... Not named the main big hall that is this next room. Now, I'm going to warn you outright, because I like to do this nowadays, since I do this for, like, photosensitive people, period. This isn't for photosensitivity, but if you're especially arachnophobic, look away. Because in the BOW room is another new enemy type, spiders. The spiders are extremely hardy. They have a lot of health. And they have 2 different attack cycles depending on whether or not you've taken out their abdomen with guns yet. With their abdomen, or is that the thorax, they like to spit acid at you that can poison you. Without it, they like to try and jump on you and try to be a facehugger, essentially, right out of Alien. And I believe in either state they can poison you, which isn't good to begin with. Their agility is surprising, especially compared to the spiders from Resident Evil 1 and its remake, because those enemies were especially slow. But they can be threatening, and every time that you get hit, I recommend checking your health to make sure you haven't been poisoned. Again, they really start placing a lot of blue herbs throughout the Antarctic base because this little poison really starts to become a mechanic. Also, you can see there's a little window there behind me. If you investigate that, that's a gas mask, but you can only get it in the case there's been poison gas detected in the room or in the base, period. And we're gonna need that, and my controls were bugging out for a second there. Okay, then. I distinctly remember that was my controller freaking out. Our main goal is to actively enter this room, though, because there's a key item in here we need to get. Namely, on the far end of the room, there is, I believe it's a BOW sticker. It's a barcode. What this is immediately needed for isn't obvious because I didn't investigate it yet. But in the center of the big room prior to this one, there's a couple of conveyor belts. We even saw an item on a conveyor belt far above us as we entered the armory area. That's a sorter. It scans barcodes to send items that are needed to separate rooms. We need to apply this barcode sticker to the box that's over here so we can grab something else. But first we want to click on this. It's a power switch for the sorter. Push the switch. Yep. And that sends that item into the armory proper, but I don't want to go over there yet. Anti-BOW gas. Handle with care. We want to send this into the BOW storage room. So, let's apply the sticker and scan it on in and send it over there. Control panel for the sorter. Lower the lever? Absolutely. And that sends that in there, so we can now go in there and grab that gas mask. Because the BOW crate kind of cracked open, so now this place is filled with anti-BOW gas. Which I believe is supposed to be the same gas that's in the gas rounds, but don't quote me on that. Now, like I said, we also sent a crate to the armory, but if you go to the armory now, you actually can't really do anything in there anymore. As that crate landing creates an explosion of some sort by landing weirdly and lights the floor on fire, and we only have an empty extinguisher. That fire is actually why I went into the armory when I did a few moments ago to go grab the assault rifle and place the detonator, as if I didn't do that then, I wouldn't be able to do it now, even. But yeah, the BOW gas is in here now, and you can grab those herbs. In fact, I actually recommend grabbing those herbs. I just leave them here thinking I might come back to grab them later on, but I don't think I ever do. But I have the inventory space, and if you're playing along and using me as a guide, you probably do as well. Though, admittedly, the health items in Resident Evil, I like them in terms of their use in that, because especially if you combine a lot of them, you can get a really good one with little inventory space used. They can very much be a sign of your confidence in Resident Evil, as you can have very few or a much stronger one that takes up the exact same amount of inventory space. Also, the mods have respawned. Again, they respawn a couple of times because this is the only room they're in the game, period. Thankfully, again, they only really take 2 shots to take out. Technically 1 even. I think when they're on the floor, after you've shot them once, I think they're technically dead. They just aren't actively dead. I don't think they'll, like, start flying again at any point. I don't think they regrow their wings. I believe their pollen can also poison you, but don't quote me on that, since I've seldom gotten hit by it. I'm so paranoid about getting poisoned in a Resident Evil, I just try to avoid it at all costs. Now, because the power's on, we can actively investigate stuff in this room. I grabbed basically every item you could in here at the start of the part, just about. But now you can actively see things if you want to, say, like, get details on what's going on around here. You can. The main thing the power on allows us to do in here is grab the key item that's important in this room, as well as investigate whatever the hell is rattling. And, admittedly, on my first playthrough, it took me a bit too long to figure out what to do here. Because I, for some reason, couldn't tell that that bookshelf there had some space behind it. I think the TV I was playing it on was like a really old CRT at the time still, so I couldn't exactly see too well there. It was kind of weird. Rat! I'm sure that rat's fine. But in here we have the butler's letter. Sir Alfred, please forgive me as I must tell you of my abrupt departure by leaving this letter. I first served your father, Lord Alexander, and have for so long shared in the joys and sorrows of the Ashford family. Lord Alexander disappeared unexpectedly 15 years ago, then an accident during an experiment took the life of our dear Alexia. You were forced to become the master of the family at a very young age, and nearly lost your sanity from the sorrow of having lost all of your family members at once. There was nothing I could do, and I felt powerless. I first thought that I should kill myself to apologize. I then realized that it would be an insult to our dear Lord Alexander and Alexia in the other world. Scott Harmon, butler, Ashford family. Jesus, dude! There's a switch. Push it? Yeah, why not? That groan made me shit my pants when I first played the game. Let's just ignore the guy down there for now, because that's kind of creepy. But here we got a plant pot. And if we check it and look underneath it, we can find ourselves the next key. This is the... Actually, which key is this? The machine room key. Alright. This allows us to open a door in an area we actually haven't been to yet in the Antarctic Base. And yes, anytime you're in the save room now, he'll like to cry like that. Needless to say, I don't like to come into the save room too much because of that. It's kind of unsettling. Now I think about it, this is like one of the few save rooms in the game they don't play the save room theme in. Don't know how I didn't get hit there, but oh well. And one shot for the for our travels. Now that is more or less the entire lower area of the Antarctic Base explored for now. But there's a couple of areas up here we can now explore, and we're going to start off with this completely optional side room even. All that's in here is ammo, and I think first aid spray, and some of the ammo is surprisingly well hidden. It's like hidden on the beds and all that. I wonder what'll happen if I investigate the item that's shining based off all the bodies around here. It's probably nothing. One of the harder items to grab in here is actually this first aid spray and the handgun ammo in this locker. If only because with the camera angle we have here, depth perception's a little bit hard to decipher. Just make sure you grab everything else before you grab the item that is clearly glowing. What you think is going to happen is going to happen. And might as well peel up as well. Ooh, bowgun powder. I always laugh whenever I see scenes like that exact thing in Resident Evil, because I can't tell if it's that the T-Virus only just took hold of the bodies, or if they were pretending to be dead, which we know they can slightly, because they can just kind of play down on the floor until you get right next to them. But I always question how intelligent zombies in Resident Evil actually are, versus how much of it is just instinct. They never really go directly into that unless they're meant to be a hyper-intelligent zombie-type enemy, like, I think one of the movies had a variant of the T-virus where the zombies could speak. I want to say that was Vendetta? Worker's Diary. October 30th. When I joined Umbrella Incorporated, I thought I would be able to live carefree for the rest of my life, being employed by this huge corporation. It's a joke that I ended up being a driver at a place like this. I asked for a position change, but they completely ignored me. It feels more like a prison. Work is extremely demanding, and there's nothing fun about it. I'd rather be dead. Well, potentially good news on that. November 3rd. My hard-earned vacation was canceled suddenly. I heard they failed to secure enough manpower due to a mistake made by the facility head, Alfred. That fool doesn't deserve forgiveness. He doesn't even treat us like human beings. November 5th. I heard an interesting story from a guy who's been working here for over 8 years. He must be awfully patient. He says there's a man who's been confined for over 10 years, locked up in a cell located deep below here. People call him Nosferatu and are deathly afraid of him. What an absurd story. November 10th. At midnight, I woke up to an ominous growling sound that seemed to be coming from deep underground. I'm so pathetic to have been frightened by such a foolish story. Then again, I suppose anyone would have a hard time maintaining their sanity if they were confined in a place like this! So, Nosferatu, I guess is the name of our little screamer down below the save room, huh? The main reason you actually want to come in this room, outside of the extra ammo, which is always handy to have, even though you probably use a lot of it just taking care of the zombies, is this is where you can get the Antarctic Base map. And not for nothing, the maps in this game are pretty useful. I wish they'd marked a little bit more and they were maybe a little bit bigger in terms of like how you can zoom in on them and such. But the actual like reading of the rooms is pretty helpful. But with that, I'm gonna need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 10, we're gonna continue our exploration of the Antarctic base, hopefully finding a way out of here in the process. See you guys then.